man is more professional than I. I am a 1% man. I am not above or below any man. I'm training my mind. I'm building my body. I'm connecting to my soul. I'm investing my money. Welcome to the 1% Man Podcast. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. I want to welcome you back to the 1% Man Podcast. I have my good friend with me here, Jordan. Jordan, say your last name for me.
Jordan Harbinger is the name.
Harbinger. Yeah. With I said it over and over again, and I was like, I'm not gonna mess it up. I'm not gonna mess it up. And I was like, how do I say it again?
Yep, all good, man. Not a problem.
So, Jordan, usually before we go into today's topic, I want to ask you 3 questions so we get to know you better. Is that cool?
Yeah, for sure.
Number 1, what is your favorite color and why?
I like purple, like a dark purple.
Okay.
Not really sure why. I can't wear it. Doesn't look good on a lot of white dudes. Looks a little weird, actually. When I was younger, I used to love it, and I used to shop at this store called Bacharach, which was it was for black gentlemen type old. And I remember I stopped shopping there once because every time I went in there were 58-year-old black dudes with canes, and I was like, oh shit, I'm at the pimp store. I'm at the old guy going to church store. And my mom was like, yeah, you didn't know? And I was like, no, I just like purple, because they were the only store that had purple and maroon colors, which usually look good with darker skin. In my opinion, they look better with darker skin. Obviously the designers at Bacharach thought so too. So but anyway, I still like purple, and I have a purple background here that you can see if you're watching us in the video version. I just think it looks great, and it's a unique color that most people don't use. It's sort of timeless in a way. It's not like a hot pink that you had in the 80s where you're like, ugh, cringe. It'll look good in 20 years, I hope. But it's also not boring. It's not like green, or something that everyone else is using.
True. And I think as a man too, saying purple is very different too as well. So
yeah.
Number 2, what is one value you would teach all men in the world that would make it a better place for everyone?
Ooh, I think I always try and, whenever people say something that makes me super angry, I always try and think okay, let me put myself in his shoes. What's going on? What's maybe going on? So when somebody replies to some email and it's nasty or something like that, instead of being like, oh yeah, well, how about this? I'm always like, maybe they're having a horrible day. And the more often I remember to do that, the better off I am. In fact, when I get really angry, nasty emails, as long as they don't seem totally unhinged like a crazy person, I usually write hey, are you okay? And you'll be surprised. Someone will tear you a new one. You write back hey, are you okay? You sound really stressed out, more so than you would normally be for what we're talking about right now. And people will reply and go, I'm really sorry. My kid is sick, and my work is saying they might lay us off, and they're not sure. And, I don't, and I go, okay, now I understand why you fired off an a-hole email in your car. But it's so much better than what I wanted to say, which was, oh yeah, you think so? Well, here's 6 reasons why you can go screw yourself, in very graphic terms. And it's that's just going to escalate things. So I always try and say what's maybe going on in this person's life. I think if everyone did that, probably wouldn't have these crazy spiraling out of control personal and work conflicts that people have,
Yes, I totally agree with you. There's something that I love to practice. It's called giving people grace. And I learned this when I went on a short mission and I came back. The chaplain was like, you got to give people grace. And I don't know anyone's faith or even yours, but he talks about how Christ, in terms of Christ gives faith, that he gives people love, even if it's not warranted, right? Just always people that love, always give people that benefit of the doubt. And when you do that, it's a lot easier to move through life, because then people are like, you know what, they start to check themselves. Almost like when you ask, hey, are you okay? It's damn, I may have pounded him, but he's reaching a hand out. And if I keep pounding him, it's you know what? I feel hold on, let me check myself for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. And
yeah, it's a little bit like jujitsu, right? They expect you to come hard. I've even had people say I remember when I lived in Israel a long time ago for a year, I said something to my neighbor who was sitting on the stairs. I lived in an apartment building, and I said something she said why do you ask how I'm doing every time you pass by? You don't even care. And I looked at her and I said, well, I don't know. It's just something small talky that I'm saying because it's better than hello. And she goes, that's the problem with you Americans. It's all just small talk. Nothing means anything. And I was like, geez, you know, and I thought about being like, what's your freaking problem? But and then I paused and I said, you know, what's your deal? And she goes, oh, if you think that I'm a bitchy girl, then that's fine. I'm going to give you a reason. And I said, you know, I took my breath and I said, I don't think you are. You're probably just having like a terrible day. And, you know, I'm your neighbor. So if there's anything I can do, just let me know. And she started crying and she's like, I'm sorry, I have had a terrible day. And we became friends like right from that moment. And she's like, I'm so sorry. She told me later, she goes, you know what? That morning she'd gotten screwed over on something. And her friend said, you know what your problem is? You're too nice. You're too nice. You're nice to everyone, and that's your problem. So she decided I was the guy that she was gonna like flip the switch and not be nice anymore. And then she was like, I just couldn't do it. You're too nice. And I thought, oh, I'm lucky I did that, because my initial reaction was like, oh yeah, well, you're a terrible person.
I love it. Yeah. So number 3, if you had to choose another profession to be an expert in, besides being an amazing award-winning podcast host, an ex-recovering lawyer, an entrepreneur. Right? Like, what would it be and why?
What would I do? Like, you're saying if I could be really good at that thing.
Yeah, you're an expert. You know what I mean? Like, expert, boom.
Am I at the top of the field or am I just good at it?
You're at the top of the field. You know what I mean? Like, at the top, the top of the top. Cream of the crop. Like, the top.
Maybe I'd be like, and this is funny to say because I don't golf at all. In fact, I've only done it like once and I'm terrible at it and I don't enjoy it. But let's say I was the best golfer. That would be pretty cool because, one, you have like $1 billion, literally, like Tiger Woods. Everyone treats you well because you're super famous, but you're also not getting, you know, what is it called at the NFL where you're getting a concussion constantly and then you die young.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So,
yeah, like I might be like, oh, I've got a little bit of wrist pain. I'll just fan it with these $100 bills that I just got for breathing into a Nike shoe. You know, like that would be pretty cool, I think. And I say golf because there's the physical requirements while they are there. A lot of those golfers can golf into their 40s, 50s. You know, you're not playing in the NFL when you're 49 years old. You've been done for a decade and change, and you still have done a ton of damage to your body. So maybe something like that, or tennis. Those like super rich guy sports, those people last a little bit longer, and there's a lot more money in it because your endorsements aren't like In-N-Out Burger; they're like Rolex.
Exactly.
You know,
it's the gentleman's game. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
with you. That's very unique. Very unique. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. Well, today I want to talk with you about how to build a uniquely fascinating network, because your show is all about interviewing fascinating people. And the thing about you is that you don't interview just regular influencers. You interview like criminal crime lords, drug lords, right? Like millionaires, astronauts, things that people don't usually always meet every single day. We see them on TV and we hear the stories about Netflix or things like that, like those mystery stories. But you get to talk to them every single day, which is super cool. And you've also built a powerful connection too as well. So starting from ground zero, right? Somebody has no connections whatsoever. He's just a regular guy, just living his life. And now he's like, you know what? I want to go out and build a network. What is his step one for doing that? How do we work that all the way up? So step one.
Yeah. So most people, they say things like, oh, I can't network or I can't build a network because I don't know anyone. Or, hey, I'm young, I'm in college, I'm broke, I can't really do anything to network. You know, nobody needs anything from me. It's only the other way around. I don't have anything to offer. So I always try and tell people to fight that perception, because the value in your network generally is not something that you can do. It's not like if I'm looking for somebody specific, yeah, I don't want to meet like a 22-year-old who's a freshman in college. But generally, your network itself becomes the value proposition when you know a lot of people. And most people will then say, well, I don't know anyone, so where do I start? So I always want people to, again, to fight that perception that they don't know anyone. And this drill I call layoff lifelines, where if you got laid off tomorrow, you know, your business collapsed or whatever it was, make a list of 12 to 15 people that you would call and ask for advice, and then reach out to those people now while you don't need anything. Because if you think you don't know anyone, well, it's not true. You know, you grew up with a guy and his dad was a successful business owner. And then this guy you went to college with, you know, his dad was really into boating and he had some kind of boating company, but you're not sure what that was all about. And then you had your old boss who taught you a few things on the job, on your first job. And then you have the guidance counselor from when you were in college that was really helpful and knew you and like really helped you make some important decisions, and you haven't kept in touch with them for 4 years. You know those people, and you want to reach out now while you don't have an agenda other than rekindling that relationship. And you can start by saying something like, hey, I've done a really bad job of keeping in touch, but I wanted to keep in touch with you because I wanted to fix that. And you were a big influence in my life 4 years ago while I was in university, and I'm thankful for that. That's fine. Because what you don't want to do is be reaching out to people when you need something, right? You got to dig the well before you get thirsty, which is what, I say on the Jordan Harbinger show all the time. And the reason that you dig the well before you get thirsty is because let's say that I call you and I went to high school with you, and it's been 8 years, or in my case, 20 years, right? That's all I'm going to say about that. 20 plus years. And, you're thinking like, okay, is it going to be Herbalife or Scientology? Like, what are you trying to sell me? What do you want? Yeah. So like, that's a problem because you're on guard. But if I just say, hey, man, we went to high school together. You were always such a successful person. I want to hear what you're up to because I'm sure you're doing well. And then 6 months later, I text you again and I go, hey, how's the dog grooming business that you started going, man? I knew you were going to be, hey, my kid, here's a photo. He's 18 months old now. Check it out. You got kids. And then another 6 months go by and we have a little casual text conversation or email conversation. And then 2 years go by and then suddenly something happens to my business and I call you and I go, hey, look, man, I'm out of work. COVID hit. I'm wondering if you know anyone who's hiring in our area. Now you're not thinking, aha, he was just buttering me up for the last 2 years. That's weird. That would be like an insane conclusion. You now know that I'm just a normal person and you know me decently well. We've kept in touch, right? You're not on guard anymore. So when I make the ask, it's not weird. People will go, oh, networking is so awkward. No, it's awkward when you haven't done anything for 2 years, 5 years, and then you're emailing people you haven't talked to in half a decade and you're like, hey, can you send my ebook to people in your network because I'm trying to get as many people to read this as possible. It's like that is awkward because you don't deserve that favor that you are asking for from other people. So that's why I say dig the well before you get thirsty. And that lay off lifelines exercise is really useful because it shows you that you do know people even when you think you don't know anyone. I've yet to meet anybody who says they don't know anyone that after this exercise is like, see, I told you. They're always like, oh, well, I didn't think about that person and I didn't really count these people. And I guess I didn't count those people either because nobody sits down and thinks about this. Because most of the time we're only thinking, okay, what do I need right now? Okay, I need a new website. Well, I don't know anyone that makes websites. Guess my network sucks. That's not how this works.
I'm understanding. So really at the end of the day, we want to start reaching out to people right now and don't need anything at all. And then start building that friendship again, start building that relationship again. So, and you're saying like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, every week I'm texting this person. I can just text like, hey, Jordan, just want to reach back out to you, man. We went to high school together, or hey, I see you doing great things. Just I want to know how you're doing. And after that, like 6 months later, reach out to them again. Like, hey, how's everything going? Right? Do you keep a spreadsheet on how you do all that? Or do you just kind of just wing it?
No, I do. I use a CRM and it's called Connection Fox, and it reminds you of people. It reminds you, hey, you haven't touched with Bertrand in 6 months, because you sort of track your interactions in there. Like when I text you, I'll go back into Connection Fox. I'm like, Bertrand talked on Wednesday, March 22nd, whatever it is. And then in 6 months, it'll be like, hey, 6 months it's been since you've, bubbled this person up. You should talk to them. And then also Connection Fox, full disclosure, I'm helping the team make it, but it also says like, this person might be interested in this. And it'll say something like, Spotify acquires such and such podcasting thing, because my note for you is like podcasting, right? So then I'm like, hey, that way if I'm totally at a loss for what to say, I'll be like, hey, are you still doing your podcast? Looks like Spotify's acquiring podcasts. Just read this article. You might be interested, right? It gives you these ideas. And I use that. And I also use social media as a reminder. So a lot of times people will be like, here's a post. I got a boat. and then you click like and you move on with your life, or you type a comment and you move on with your life. But for me, I'll see that post and then I'll email that person, or I'll send a text to that person and I'll be like, dude, nice boat. Because that's sort of like, it's like the algorithm reminding me of when to reach out. You know, they have a life event, so it's really apropos. It makes sense for me to reach out at that point and say something versus just waiting for 6 months, you know? So that way I can get in. And the reason I don't say just click like or make a comment is because you know this, if you post something on Instagram, you don't know who's clicked like ever. You see like one or two of those people. That's it. And then if there's a lot of comments on something, like you get married, you don't even remember who did that comment. But if you text people, then like that's probably like 30 people that did that, or 20 or 10. So now you're on this short list and it's much more memorable. Plus, nobody replies to comments and goes, hey, thanks for commenting on my photo of my boat. How are you? I mean, it's rare, but they'll reply to your text and go, hey, haven't talked to you in a while. What's new? You should come on my boat sometime, right? That's how a conversation starts. Comments and likes don't really start conversations.
Now, something that's kind of interesting is that you keep saying email and text message, but you haven't mentioned phone calls. What about phone calls? You think, is that is that a higher level, or is that just too soon?
It's a higher level. I would say phone calls are fine, but if I don't know someone, or it's an unknown number, or I've only talked to them a few times, I'm not going to pick up the phone. And a lot of busy people will be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And you're like, nah, I just wanted to chat. And they're like, okay, I'm in a meeting. You know, you just don't know. So texting, no one goes, how dare you text me? It's like, okay, I'll just answer at my own leisure. Like, no one's going to yell at you for emailing them either. But for a phone conversation, if I get a phone call from an unknown number, not picking it up. If I get a phone call from somebody who I haven't talked to in a really long time that I'm not close with, I might be like, oh, butt dial. I'm not going to pick that up. You know, they probably accidentally called me. And if I get a phone call from somebody that I am close with that I haven't talked to in a while, I might decline the call and text them back and go, hey, are you okay? Busy right now. What's new? And then they're like, just checking in. And I'm like, well, I don't want to talk on the phone. You know, so so then I'm texting them back. But for close friends, if they call me, I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, man? Or I'll call them back later in the day, you know, friends, family. But at some point, it doesn't scale well. You know, I can be texting 5 people at once, and those conversations last 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But I can only talk to one person at a time on a phone call. And when's the last time you had a 5-minute phone call? That ends up being 20 minutes. Exactly. And then you're like, damn, I spent Saturday afternoon on the phone with people I haven't even talked to in 5 years. Like, no thanks.
So it's really about being intentional about growing your network. And then also, but tell me, what's the secret sauce? Or I'm asking what's the secret sauce because you don't interview, you interview fascinating people, right? I believe, I forgot what the guest was, his name, but I know he was like a drug lord or something. How did you get in contact with him? Like, how did that connection work? Because it's
drug lord,
right? Or he was like a, I wish I should have wrote down the name, but I was just going through and I was like, this isn't just regular people. It's not just influence. It's not like a Simon Sinek, right? He's like kind of in your network, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that's like completely out, you know? He's almost reminded me like a El Chapo type of thing.
Yeah. I definitely have interviewed like the guys from Narcos. I mean, I have interviewed drug lords for sure, like Freeway Rick Ross, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
And those guys, I mean, it's tough. Like, you know, you just find out, okay, they're doing a documentary, or the guy has a book, and then you find the publicist, and the publicist says, oh, I haven't worked with him for 3 years, but I'll forward this to him, you know, and then they reply. Something like that. And I routinely will email someone and they'll go, oh yeah, I did publicity on that book. I can never reach the guy, but, you know, let me ask him if he's open to this, just as a favor. You know, or they'll say like, well, if it's going to sell books and I get royalties because I'm his agent, yeah, let me see what I can do, you know? So I get a lot of those, or I'll know somebody who that person did an interview with like 3 years ago, and I'll go, hey, do you still have the contact information for Freeway Rick Ross? He was on your NBC Nightline episode. And they're like, let me ask my producer. So I do just reach out to my network and use those connections to get contact info, and then, you know, reach out from there. But that's like part of the work is like finding the person, emailing them 50 times, you know, till they finally reply. There's a lot of that.
So a lot of follow up and a lot of that too as well. So now, I just kind of recap a little bit. So we're laying the groundwork. We're emailing. So we have reached out to 12 to 15 people that we know. We've messaged them. We're starting to build that up. So that's going to take about a good 6 months, right, to start messaging them back as well. Mm-hmm. So now we've dug the well, and what's the next thing? Like, do we start asking after that 6 months, or do we wait a year, or when is a good time to say, okay, this is a good time to ask?
I mean, you can always make the ask. The thing is, of course, you want to make sure that the ask that you are putting forth is something that makes sense. I mean, look, I usually don't start by making an ask. I usually start by offering something of value. Now, it doesn't mean that, like, if I'm a web designer, I'm making people free websites or anything like that. That's not where I'm at with it. What I'm saying is, I might be talking with you in 6 months, a year, whatever it is, on text, and then you say, yeah, I'm trying to make a website. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know who to hire for this. And I go, oh, I have a good web designer in my network who made my website. Do you want a referral? What's your budget? And you'll go, oh yeah, it's XYZ. So then I'm connecting you two, and that's valuable for you. It's valuable for my web designer, web team guy who made our site. So I kind of have a win-win, and all I'm doing is making an introduction. Or someone will say, hey, Jordan, I'm thinking about doing this type of thing with my business. Do you know anything about that? Do you have an opinion? And I'll give them, a little bit of advice or something like that, or a one-off opinion, or I'll introduce them to somebody else who knows more about this stuff than I do. And that's valuable. And I just keep doing that over time. And then when I do have an ask, when I need something, then it's definitely not weird, because I've already helped that person find a new web designer, and I gave them advice on some problem that they asked me about, so it's never weird for me to make an ask, because I've usually made deposits into the bank, so to speak, for months or even years before ever having anything to ask for in the first place.
So similar to Gary Vee's jab, right hook. So value, ask. Value.
Yeah,
value,
except I would say it's not even value, ask. It's more like value, ad infinitum, until one day maybe there's a chance for them to help me. But I'd say the vast majority of people in my network, I've never asked for anything because I don't have any need. And there are people that write me and they're like, okay, you've helped me 10 times and I've never done anything for you. I'm getting frustrated. And I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. Because there's reciprocation. People start to be like, I want to do something to help you. You've done a lot for me. And I'm like, I don't know. One day, I'll think of something. So when I do make asks, a lot of times people just go way above and beyond and are really, really thankful and come through in a big way. And that's what you want. That's what you want. You want to have that kind of social capital referral currency. You want to have that banked.
And then soon enough, I'm guessing that now you switch from being the hunter to being the hunted, right? Where
yeah.
People are hunting you and wanting your advice and seeking you, right?
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
When that happened to you, how did that feel? Or do you remember a moment you were like, you know what? I think now I'm the hunted, or it had never happened?
I'm not even sure. I guess I don't think about it. I'm sure that there was a time, but nothing comes to mind. It's not something I think about very often because I don't keep score, I'm not thinking, oh, I've helped this person a bunch, they owe me one. I'm never really thinking about that. So I don't keep that sort of macro score either, where I'm like, oh man, the world has not helped me as much as I've helped the world. I never really think about that because it's a surefire way to come up salty. If you think you're doing more for others than they're doing for you, your choice then is to keep being the punching bag in your own mind, even though that's probably not the case, or to stop helping other people because, quote unquote, life's unfair, or it's a bunch of unfair, it's skewed the wrong way. And I'm like, there's no advantage to me being like, I'm helpful to everyone. There's no advantage to really thinking about that, because all it does is make you feel like you're getting the shaft or that you're owed something, which is never a useful mindset to have.
Okay, totally understand. So don't keep score. Just keep giving. Just keep giving.
Yeah,
it's a natural thing of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, and I mean, there's boundaries. If somebody's borrowing money from you constantly and never paying you back, stop giving them money, right? But if somebody asks you for an introduction to somebody else and then they use it and they get ahead in their career, and then they ask you for another intro to somebody else and they use that and they get ahead at something, who cares? Good. I mean, good. Don't be thinking well, I've helped them a bunch and they never come over and cut my lawn for free. That's just a quick way to just poison your own relationships, because then, if you're keeping score, then one day you're going to really just poison your own relationship, poison the well. That's the expression I'm looking for. Because you're going to say, like, I've driven him to the airport 4 times. He's never driven me to the airport. Well, have you asked? Well, not really, but he should just do it. Okay, so who loses here? The other person thinks you're still friends and you're pissed off because you've driven him 4 times and he's never driven you, or he's only driven you once. So it's unfair. You're the only person suffering in that equation. The other person's not even thinking about you, obviously. So it just is a waste of energy to keep score. Now, it doesn't mean forget if people are being horrible to you. Like I said, if somebody's borrowing money from you and never returning it, make a mental note. But otherwise, don't try and make things even, or you're just going to end up a hateful, sort of salty person.
No, exactly. So I want to switch gears a little more and talk a little bit about you. What would you say was the person that you really were like so excited to interview? Someone that you interviewed and you were just like, I can't believe I interviewed them. I'm so excited. This was like a memorable interview for you.
Sure. I mean, I guess I never really get my hopes up about a lot of interviews because anything can happen. But yeah, it's hard for me to say. There's so much that can happen and get in the way, but I don't know. It's always fun to like talk to Mark Cuban or Kobe Bryant, or Danny Trejo, Malcolm Gladwell, Ray Dalio. These are well-known, exciting, interesting folks. So it's always fun to learn from them. But I don't really get like super into celebrities or anything like that. So there's nobody where I'm like, oh my God, I'm fawning over this person. It just doesn't really happen,
Yeah. So the last word is something that we want you to give to our guests, something that you live by, or a principle, or something that you've learned, or something that you carry with you that you want to share with us. What is something that you want to share with us?
The networking thing really is, it's dig the well before you get thirsty, right? Build relationships now. A lot of people procrastinate. They don't see why they need to do it now. You're too late at the point that you need the relationships. So dig the well before you get thirsty. That's really what it is. And start now. It doesn't matter. You have no excuse. It takes a few minutes a day. This isn't a huge project. You don't have to go to mixers. It's about creating systems and consistency. I would say every day in the morning at whatever point, go in your phone, open up your text messages, scroll all the way to the bottom. That's where like those old dead threads are. People you haven't talked to in 2 years. You had lunch with them once at a conference, whatever it is. Go in there and reactivate some of those weak and dormant network ties. Do like one person per day, during the work week, and do that for a month. And you'll start to be like, wow, all these people are glad to hear from me. I'm starting to see opportunities come through because people are working on interesting things that they asked if I want to be a part of. You start to see the returns on just a very, very tiny investment. And I think if people do that, they'll find that networking and relationships, it's not about being salesy or gross. It's actually fun and it's really, really easy. And that's how you dig the well before you get thirsty. And before you know it, this thing starts to really pay off.
Exactly. Now, Jordan, you do have an amazing course on networking. So where can we get that, and where can people learn more about you?
Sure. So the course is free. There's no upsells. It's got the texting drill I just talked about. It's got the layoff lifelines drill I just talked about, and about a dozen more similar drills. jordanharbinger.com/course is where the course is. Again, it's free. You don't have to enter your credit card or any of that crap. And the Jordan Harbinger Show is the podcast where you can hear, everyone from Kobe Bryant to Malcolm Gladwell to Mark Cuban and hundreds of others. I hope people enjoy the interviews and the show that I do because, it's a labor of love in many ways. And I appreciate that you also listen to the show, or at least that's what you said when you booked this interview.
Exactly. So, Jordan, thanks so much for for coming on the show as well. Yeah.
My pleasure, man.
So, my brother, you guys heard it here first. Until next time, your legacy starts today.
Thank you, my friend, for tuning into today's episode. This means so much to us over here at the 1% Man community. Now, we want to extend a hand of gratitude to you. So I have a free gift for you. All you have to do is go to www.the1percentman.com/podcast gift. This is an exclusive gift for listeners that tune into our podcast. So go over there, get that free gift as well. And now I have 2 simple acts of you. 1, hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment and a 5-star review, because that helps us to see what you love about the podcast, and that helps us to bolster up in the rankings so more people can find us and listen to this pertinent information that we have for men of today's age. Last but not least, I want you to go back and listen to this podcast. Find just one thing that you can implement in your life today so you can move forward. Remember, progress over perfection. And till next time, my friend, your legacy starts today.